When the Giants came up to bat in the fifth, down 10-1, there were maybe 20,000 of us left, enjoying a rare hot day at the park. It was a gorgeous Wednesday afternoon, and there really wasn't a better place to be in SF. Oh, the waning light in Indian summer then, like a consolation gift to us for staying. Giants' recent acquisition Mike Fontenot drew a leadoff walk, and Andres Torres singled, and then, wait, what? Aubrey Huff advanced both to scoring position with a grounder. When Pat Burrell singled to right to bring in 2 runs, we made a little noise. Hey, Reds 10, Giants 3. All year, our expensive left-handed reliever Jeremy Affeldt, whom we'd signed last year to a 2-year, $9 million deal, that's 2009 we're referring to, had struggled in relief. He seemed as likely to throw a wild pitch as a strike. When he entered the game in the 6th, I felt manager Bruce Bochy and pitching coach Dave Righetti had just given up on this one. I assumed they were happy taking 2 of 3 from the Reds over the week and had decided to use this opportunity to help some guys who have been struggling to maybe work out some kinks. I had resigned myself to watching Affeldt fail before he even threw a pitch, and I even prepared my son for it. Affeldt had recently absorbed browbeating in the press for being shown up significantly by left-handed acquisition Javier Lopez, a specialist whom the Giants pay 1/10 of Affeldt's salary. Affeldt watched Lopez enter games in pressure situations just days before in San Diego and at home, and to end them with less than 10 pitches. It must have been a blow to his ego. Affeldt stepped up and closed out the 6th without giving up a hit. 3 up, 3 down. And electricity passed through us. Not one of our guys wanted to be the one not carrying the weight now. Now, anybody who loves effort and was at AT&T Park that day fell in love with this team. If you loved effort, it was impossible not to. In the 6th, Juan Uribe hit a 1-out single to short, just beating the tag. Nate Schierholtz, pinch hitting for Affeldt, who had done his job, smashed a double to right, sending Uribe to third. After 5 2/3, the Reds pulled Bailey with a 7-run lead and brought Bill Bray in relief. It was Bray's wild pitch that made everyone sit up. It was a parallel to Bumgarner's run-scoring wild pitch in the 1st. Karma. This one brought Uribe home and sent Schierholtz to third. Fontenot then stepped up with 1 down and grounded out to second, allowing Schierholtz to cross the plate. Reds 10, Giants 5. Now the vibe in the building was palpably no-hitterish. It was 10-5. Nobody wanted to talk about a comeback for fear of jinxing it, but there was an excitement after that wild pitch, like maybe the Reds were more vulnerable in relief. We were all 2 days full of recent memories of towering homers by Posey and Uribe and Burrell. Could the Giants come back? I wondered what Kruk, Kipe, and John were talking about. I still haven't heard what I've been told is an epic broadcast. In the 7th, the Reds brought Logan Ondrusek in relief of Bray. Sergio Romo pitched for the Giants, and both pitchers held. Still down 5 now in the top of the 8th, the Giants brought closer Brian Wilson in early to keep the Giants within reach. Wilson, who would go on to end the season with the Major League leading 48 saves, our nutty backstop, crazy as a loon, but who knew how to finish, had that fight, the same thing that this team had, the unwillingness to just roll over and call it a day because you're down. We went to the bottom of the 8th, trailing by 5 runs, but having crept back to within striking distance against the Reds' bullpen. Has there ever been a more exciting inning played by an SF team than the Giants' 8th that day? That's for historians to decide, but it was the craziest Giant inning I've ever seen live, hands down. Guillen leads off with a single to left, and then Sandoval to center. Runners in the corners for Juan, 1 swing of the bat, Uribe, blam! 3-run homer. Nobody out. Ondrusek done. Reds 10, Giants 8. The Reds, suddenly only up 2, scramble. Massive substitutions. Halsey in at left, Bruce at right, Arthur Rhodes on the mound to set up Cordero, the closer. It was crunch time, and we, long-suffering Giant fans, desperately searching for situational hitting and run support, watched 4 or 5 of our guys make it happen. Ross and Fontenot hit back-to-back singles to left. Torres jumped on a Rhodes changeup, smacking a stand-up double to the same part of the park, scoring both of them. Reds 10, Giants 10. Then, in 2 quick at-bats against Rhodes, Posey and Huff earned sac flies to bring Torres home. Sliding to the plate to beat the throw, the Giants led 11-10. The place went crazy. My 7-year-old was high-fiving 70-year-olds. It may have been the smallest standing ovation the Giants will ever receive, but it was unequaled in sincerity. When I looked around, it was apparent that since the 5th, some fans had returned, or maybe had come in from downtown bar to catch what they were seeing on TV or hearing about in the streets or on the radio, the greatest comeback in Giants history. Now, there is some dispute about what constitutes a comeback. To me, it isn't a comeback unless you win. There are many who share this opinion. This definition dominates the view presented by the mainstream sports press. But for some, a comeback is defined by effort, as measured by the difference in the lead that you make. If you were down by 100 but lost by only 2, it must have been a really amazing game and you must have made superhuman effort, though you took the loss. I find this definition of a comeback without victory to be suspect in sports with only 2 opponents, because where in a foot race it applies to the difference between seconds versus thirds finish in relation to first, or more importantly in relation to fourth, their distance from third, it makes no real sense where only 2 are competing against each other. That said, the 10 runs made up by the Giants to take the lead was the greatest deficit overcome in Giants history. We were exhilarated. The relief of tension was palpable. We all felt special. It was incredible. We were going to sweep the Reds, scoring almost 40 runs in 3 days. The elders behind us, my son, they were all glowing in the late afternoon light. It's a shame home games don't just last 8 innings. There's those last 3 pesky outs to get. Even after a huge comeback achieved as a team, you have to stay focused and seize the win. To me, that's what makes a comeback. Now, here a word must be inserted about Pablo Sandoval. I was at a local pub the other night watching the game when Sandoval made a throwing error by sending the ball home with a force out at every bag without stepping on third, preventing a double play from ending the inning. A mental slip that allowed a run to score later and lose the game for the Giants. When a patron beside me at the bar said he blamed the marketing department for Pablo's problems, that was when I put it together. The marketing department, desperate to replace Barry Bonds with a batting persona, forced the 23-year-old Sandoval to become the Panda and went nuts making panda suits, hats, bobblies, glasses, mats, keychains, stuffies, and everything else. Did anyone in marketing notice that our strength is pitching and that we need team play and contact hitters? It was undue pressure to put on Pablo Sandoval. I enjoy shouting out to the players when I'm at the park. I sit down low enough and I like to encourage them. We were there just up the first baseline behind the Reds dugout. And in the third, I can remember shouting to Freddie Sanchez as he awaited a pitch with Panda standing on first, "Hey, Freddie, you got him, man. They can't touch you." Pablo, standing on first, turned and pointed at me. Boom, just like that. With his 2 black-gloved fingers, and he shouted, "That's right." My son was thrilled, Panda talked right to us. Freddie hit into a double play. It felt like poor Pablo was cursed. Or maybe it was me. With 1 out in the top of the 9th and the Giants up 11-10, after coming back from being down 10-1, the greatest comeback in Giants history, Brian Wilson delivered and the Reds' Drew Stubbs hit a routine grounder to Sandoval. I was sitting right behind first. I looked right at him. He scooped it up and had plenty of time. For a second, I thought I saw his eyes looking right at us and not where they ought to have been. And then I watched his right arm just go screwy and his face turned and the ball flew way wide of Huff at first and into the grass in front of the dugout. Stubbs, thinking it was going to be a routine out, hadn't really come close to first, so he turned the corner and turned on the speed, arriving standing at second. The 2-base throwing error on Pablo Sandoval put the tying run in scoring position, and it was the 5th Giant error of the game. Moments later, Wilson gave up the single to Janish that scored Stubbs. He then got the final out. Reds 11, Giants 11. The Reds had turned to Nick Massett to finish their debacle of an 8th, which the right-hander ended with a strikeout. Now he manhandled the Giants in the 9th, striking out 3. The aforementioned Javier Lopez, la specialista for the Giants, entered in the 10th and, true to form, made quick work of the Reds. Again, it felt like Lopez didn't want to be responsible for failing when called upon. I mean this in a good way. Not like guys competing for jobs, but like comrades in a struggle. In the 11th, Bochy leaned on Lopez to extend, and the specialist held the meat of the Reds lineup to just 1 hit. Meanwhile, Reds manager Dusty Baker turned the ball over to their excellent closer, Francisco Cordero. the Giants wouldn't score in the 10th or 11th. But we got the thrill of seeing a scoreboard I don't think I'll ever see live again, and that is the title of this piece. 11-11 in the bottom of the 11th. Arriving at the top of the 12th, exhausted of left-handed relievers, I looked down to see Barry Zito trotting out to the mound. Bochy probably thought he had no other choice. Maybe he thought it would help the slumping Zito get back some lost confidence. But there was starter Barry Zito on short rest, entering a tied game in the 12th inning in relief in August. Janish singled to left. Then Matt Cairo doubled to center, sending Janish to third. With 2 on, nobody out in the 12th inning of a midweek day game, the last of a series in August against the Central Division leader, and a failing Zito on the mound, these Giants refused to die. The next batter, Chris Helsey, hit a sharp grounder to Uribe, hoping to get the winning RBI. Janish sprinted for home, but the hard-charging Uribe scooped it up and threw a bullet to Posey at the plate in time to get the sliding Janish out. It was unbelievable. It was, I gave the safe symbol, but he was out. It was just incredible. We roared. It was still 11-11. But now it was one away with runners in the corners for Zito facing league MVP candidate Joey Votto. We knew the battle between Barry Zito and Joey Votto would decide this game. As Votto fought off pitch after pitch on the strikes, and Zito missed the box by millimeters on the balls, the sinking feeling that we were losing this one crept into us all. In a way, I was resigned to it when Barry ran out there, but somehow it didn't matter. We had seen superhuman effort by our Giants, grit, toughness, and an unwillingness to roll over and die. Finally, though, one guy was tougher than them all, and in an epic display of game-winning force, Joey Votto hit a ball so hard into shallow right field that nobody could have handled it. It was a smoking dribbler. Sanchez stopped it and tried to get the ball home. Cairo, who had taken a huge lead from third, arrived at the plate almost simultaneously with the ball. Posey blocked the plate. The two collided hard as Cairo stretched for the plate, but Posey held on. The umpire, Hirschbeck, signaled vigorously and initially shouted, "Out!" And then microseconds that felt like minutes, the ball popped up into the air, out of the scrum, slipping out of Buster's hand, and the call was reversed. Cairo was safe. Reds 12, Giants 11. Cordero retired the side in order and stole a win as the Cincinnati Reds beat the San Francisco Giants 12-11 in 12 crazy innings. Barry Zito took the loss to fall to 8-9. He didn't win again in 2010, but this lousy inning in the toughest of situations was the one that made him an under 500 pitcher and helped keep him off the roster for our first World Series championship. This game, many of the players and coaches have mentioned as this last crazy thing before the run that ended up taking them to the World Series and victory. Amazingly, the story of this game and its internal question of whether or not you can lose a great comeback was buried by baseball itself, which in its statistical perfection provided a definitive comeback game on the very same day by the exact same margin of difference. In a staggering coincidence only possible in the mathematical infinity of baseball's continuity, the Atlanta Braves were ahead by the exact same score of 10-1 over the Colorado Rockies and allowed Colorado to come back and win 11-10 on the same day. So guys were like, now that's a comeback. Thinking about it now, you could say it was the last game the Giants lost that season because of a collection of their own mistakes rather than by a single player's lapse or by being outplayed by the better performance of their opponents. But despite the lopsided opening and all the crazy errors made by so many Giants, this against the odds contest was also the grittiest expression of this team's fight that I'd yet witnessed. I've never been happier after a loss in my life. I was just so proud of our guys for trying that hard. You could feel that pride among all the fans as we shuffled toward the exits, smiling. The whole team had an unwillingness to lose, yet lose they did, and in a sad but poetic way, they lost came at the hands of our own beloved, expensive Prince of Inability, Barry Zito. Yes, we were proud of our Giants despite, and now I understand what people mean when they say a great comeback can end in a loss.